Good morning, and welcome to our first Coffee with the Commission episode for 2023. I'm Vaughn Poe, the Executive Director. I'm accompanied this morning by our Assistant Director, Teresa Hoffman.
Good morning and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you.
Well, how was your holiday, by the way?
Oh, it was nice, but we traveled to Nebraska and 47 below wind chill. So I was glad to come home.
Understood. We didn't quite have that here in Alabama, but it was a beautiful Christmas nonetheless.
Yes, it was.
We wanted to remind everyone this morning to mute your devices if you're logged on. If you have questions, raise your hand. And if once you're done talking, please mute yourself again. That would be greatly appreciated. This is a forum we really like to hear from you all. That's the design of Coffee with the Commission. So you will be interacting, but as you do so, please be responsive to your other attendees and make certain that you're muted if you're not speaking. We had a very interesting year in 2022.
Yes, we did.
We had a lot that happened beyond even the renewal cycle. Just a lot of different things were happening with licensees and the market, and just it was very exciting in general. Right now, we're currently sitting at about 36,029 individual licensees.
Wow.
So 36,029 and counting. And we saw a lot of this trending during COVID, and we had concerns about maybe seeing the numbers falter a bit. That did not happen. Didn't happen. We actually grew licensees, and now we've got a strong licensee community. But with that, we've got several other issues that have been pointed out as well, and we've tried to work as diligently as possible to correct those. I think last year, maybe around the beginning of the year, we really started to focus on our qualifying brokers and licensee process therein. And so I think now is a great opportunity to revisit that for 2023. We convened a task force last year and really started to regroup and rethink. We had a few commissioners give us a few of their concerns as well. And so as we think back to 2022 and look forward into 2023, what are some things that you see from a regulatory standpoint that are happening nationally? We're addressing Alabama and our license law and that sort of thing, but what we've noticed are there are trends generally in the industry, and I know nationally, Arello really captures a lot of that information. And I know our brokers program is not unique, but we're trying to make it more so. I know several other states are working on things in the same way. Do you know of any in particular or anything that Arello is doing in that area?
Um, with regard to broker education, there are many states that are revving it up. They're increasing hours of pre-license, they're increasing hours of continuing education. Um, some of them are having separate courses for those who become qualifying brokers, all very similar to some of the things that we are considering. But I think that we're unique in some of the plans that we have will set us apart. Some of the interactions with the Real Estate Commission itself, some of the orientation that we hope to provide. I have never seen another jurisdiction go to that extent. So once again, I'm very proud of the approach that this real estate commission takes to the education.
Yeah, we were talking about this last year with licensees as well, and we've had several task forces over the years that have tried to address the process. Uh, in response to licensees, no less, we've tried to address the indoctrination process in how we license individuals. We had a salesperson's task force, and that task force completed its work. Now we're focusing on the brokers and specifically qualifying brokers, and I think that it's imperative for licensees to provide feedback because you have different types of functional roles that exist across the state. And we have associate brokers that, in some cases, have no roles or responsibilities, and then qualifying brokers who, in some instances, have maybe a full plate.
Mhm.
And so I think that the work that we're doing on our task force will currently hopefully address those issues and not get too far ahead of the ball, but absolutely make sure that our folks are better qualified by the time they become managing brokers or they're running a real estate company out there.
that are supervised too. Broker supervision is an issue all across the country, and there have been concerns. As we've seen a greater population come into the industry, and kind of in a rush, a lot of states have experienced this increase in license numbers, and it became clear that it was hard for the supervision to keep up, the training and the supervision. And so all of us are wrestling with that. One of the things I think is really exciting about some of our plans is that we went to the staff themselves and we asked each division what they would like qualifying brokers to know. And a lot of it was how to use the tools that we're making available, because some of them have just missed that and they don't realize how much they can do by going onto the website. Um, and also some of it is audit process and how they can lay out their books. We've done our what are we calling them? Our assistance audits.
Assistance
We're
visits.
doing that,
Hmm.
and so now we're going to train that up front too, and how to handle licensees and check in on renewals numbers and education numbers, and it's just going to be very nice to have these people more qualified, more able to use the tools that we're putting in their hands.
Teresa, I'll pause here because you just made an extremely salient point that I think we presume should be second nature and just known to all brokers, but we continually have issues where the qualifying broker does not renew their license.
Yes.
And as a result, any subsequent licensees under that broker's license are now invalidated. And we've messaged it here, we've sent out periodicals, we've posted things on social media, and yet just the other day, I think we had an issue where a qualifying broker just maybe forgot to renew or forgot to verify CE, and thereby putting those licenses in jeopardy. And they called the commission and they want it remedied overnight, and it just doesn't happen that way. And so I think with the orientation that we're contemplating for the new qualifying brokers program and several other things that we've talked about, we can hopefully help all brokers, whether they're seasoned or new, just gain a better understanding of their duties and responsibilities, because that's a huge issue, especially for the individual salesperson who may not have any control over what the qualifying broker does. However, they are in fact directly impacted once that license is not renewed or CE is not completed. Are there any questions out there about that particular issue? For some of you, it may be a non-issue, but we're still having qualifying brokers that are uh, probably not as apt as they should be to renew their license and also ensure that those salespersons have renewed, but then also the CE requirement, making certain that's complete. Are there any questions out there about that?
I would just remind people that we are moving at a very fast pace here, probably making more changes than I have seen in years in some places. And so, what that requires of you is that you stay connected so that you can stay up to date on the new tools, the new information that is going out there. Our CPR division, that's Communications and Public Relations Division, they're messaging constantly, and it really will be incumbent upon you to keep up.
That that is a very very good point. We have a lot of information, and we put a lot of information out, and it just appears that regardless of how hard we try in the various venues that we use, we miss some populations of licensees. And to go back again and just reiterate, I think the assistance visits, coupled with the other things that we're doing, are having an impact on the licensees. We're having qualifying brokers that are requesting those assistance visits,
Yeah.
and they're learning. As qualifying brokers, they're learning how to better do their jobs. They're learning about renewals. They're learning about tracking CE. They're learning about the tools that are already out there for their use. They just, for some reason, don't know. Through the education process, it's been missed, and unfortunately, missteps happen when you don't know or you don't have all the information. So we're talking a lot these days about brokers, broker supervision, and that sort of thing. We passed, or not passed, but we adopted a set of rules
Mhm.
last year specifically to address broker supervision, but under the vein of what, by defining what is a failure to supervise. I think that was important as well. License law had, I think, one sentence that stated, a licensee or a broker will supervise.
Yeah.
Well, okay, got it. We're supervising. What does that mean?
Mhm.
And I think with the clarification, it really assisted brokers out there in understanding more about what's required. Now, granted, that's changed over the years because our leadership structures have changed in real estate.
Mhm.
We have folks that are doing business on teams now in some cases, and the broker is not co-located with the actual licensee. We're trying to address that, and it's really a changing industry. And I think that here at the commission, we're addressing those as rapidly as possible. There are some things that we can do faster than others, of course, but I think the rules are a very valuable tool to help licensees better control their business environments and their teams out there, or just whatever they're doing. Even the mom and pops have more help now because we've clarified a lot.
Mhm.
So, shifting gears a bit, um, we get a lot of phone calls here.
Mhm.
You field a lot of those phone calls as they come in. There are issues that arise, and really, folks need an answer right away,
Mhm.
and we get those done. Are there any particular trends that you've seen here in Alabama in contrast to the rest of the nation? And that's just general.
Um, I don't know that, again, what goes around comes around. And that's why Arello is so valuable because if it happens here, it's going to happen in Georgia, it's going to happen in Tennessee. It's going to, it spreads out. Real estate transcends boundaries and borders. So we get the same kind of thing that they're getting. If not right today, we'll get it in 6 months, and vice versa. So we help each other out by forewarning, by sharing information, by creating laws and sharing the language. It's very useful to be in that larger organization and have the bird's eye view. As far as right here in Alabama, some of the things that we're wrestling with are the various ways that this industry can do business. With all of the technology available today, with as portable as business can be today, we are dealing with various business formats. And we have to catch up and make sure that the things that are important to protect the consumer can still be in place. Those are still important. Um, it's interesting though, because I was doing some research on, for instance, virtual office websites. And that was an issue that was being wrestled with, believe it or not, 20 years ago.
Really?
So when we think that we're right on the cutting
That is
edge,
so interesting.
well, things are cyclical. And it takes a while sometimes for these initiatives to build up steam. But I was looking at some research, and 20 years ago, Arello and NAR did research together for virtual office websites. And they worked on making sure that there was a client um, agent relationship established and that everybody knew when that was established, even if they were apart in space, maybe even time, when that was established needed to be defined because we were all concerned about agency disclosure. And we remain concerned about that for the public's benefit. So then the focus was establishing that relationship and making those disclosures at a distance. And I would say that remains in the forefront. So people who are looking at more electronic communication need to remember that you can still establish and you must still establish those relationships.
Wow. So 20 years ago.
Uh-huh.
Well, it is certainly, a pressing issue now, and I think that even those structures are still morphing into something. I mean, they're adjusting to how business has to be done,
Hmm.
but it's happening at the speed of light now. And you really, as regulators, we have to at least keep pace.
We do, but I don't think we have to compromise. We can't compromise what our mission is, and that is public interest. I know that's our mission. I know it's also your mission. If you don't protecting your consumer, you're not going to have any business anymore. It's going to affect your bottom line. And I also know that there's a lot of good people out there that want to make sure that everybody's happy in the transaction.
And this is very pressing in concept because right now we have 4,331 companies in the state of Alabama. So almost 4,400 licensed real estate companies or branches that are conducting business. We're watching that
Amazing.
sort of ebb and flow during COVID. I think it's settled a bit now, but that's a higher number than we had just a year ago or 18 months ago.
Mhm.
So the number of actual licensed companies is still growing as well. I know our licensee numbers, we talk about that a lot. That's still growing at a rate of about 8.1 per day. Our inactive licensee population grew. So that, we normally see that on the back end of a renewal year, but this time, I mean, we could just trend almost the growth of it, and we have about 12,226 inactive licensees. And I think we were talking about this a few years ago, in that licensees were gauging the market to see if
Yes.
they should hang around or not. And luckily, there's the proof. They're still here. And
That's right.
so normally those folks would have lapsed out, but they're still with us. And so when you have a strong licensee community, the topics that you're bringing up are even more important because you have a large swath of folks that are looking for information. They're searching for information to hopefully help them get their jobs done better. But then, too, there's a consumer response to what they're doing as well. And that's where we're involved. You made a very good point again in that we're a consumer protection agency. We talk a lot about licensees, licensees, licensees. What about licensees? But our function, our core function, is to protect consumers. Period.
Yeah, and I recently came across a discussion in that area, and I'd really like to share that for a minute.
Please.
This is actually something that Gary Isom, who was the director of the Arkansas Real Estate Commission, said not long ago, and I'm going to pay attention to the wording so I get it right. But he was talking about regulation, protecting consumers, working with the industry, and its effect on the world. And he said this: we must recognize the value of a healthy regulatory market in which consumers can conduct business, because healthy regulatory markets build consumer confidence, a leading economic indicator. Consumer confidence increases spending. Increased consumer spending creates jobs. New jobs create opportunities and the foundation for a healthy and productive economy. So we may just be a little cog in that wheel, but we're a very important one. And it's the partnership between what we do and what you do that makes that grow into such an important factor in the economy.
Absolutely so. I think, again, this will only intensify in the coming year or so.
Mhm.
We've seen the trends, we've seen 20-year trends. I think someone had a 30-year trend, and so they've seen how real estate ebbs and
Yes.
flows with the economy, and you can sort of gauge licensee and consumer behavior during those periods. And
Hmm.
so, as long as we're anticipating that, I think we should be able to respond in a timely fashion and get answers out there. One of the things that we talk about a lot here, are there any questions about anything we've discussed so far? Teresa and I are going fairly strong. Are there any questions, just in general?
Or anything you'd like to hear about that you'd like us to address.
Okay.
Well, okay, we
Well,
must be
I
doing
guess we're doing
something
well.
right.
Well, again, we talk a lot about how we assist licensees and how we try to adjust to make certain that their needs are being met as well. And one of those is in education. And we talked about it a little bit at the beginning of this episode, but I think that it's important for licensees to hear and know that we are aware that there is some real estate information out there that is dated.
Mhm.
We're aware of that, and I think the education department has worked on that annually. Each year, they have some initiative where they're trying to correct what's being done. Pardon me. One thing that we did last year that I really think is important to reiterate this year is that we took a deep, deep dive into real estate education in the state of Alabama, beginning with the instructors.
Mhm.
For the first time, we actually looked at how we license instructors, and we revamped that. We added some weighted criteria to assist individuals in being better instructors before they become instructors.
Right.
And I think that was a very important caveat to make because our process existed, and some places may not even have one, but our process needed to be, I think, rethought. And luckily, we have an education department with Ryan and his team that are very responsive to that. And so we sat down and really looked at the process of putting an instructor in front of a class of students and just looked at all the variables that could exist there. And I think the uh, changes that we made will make that person a better instructor.
Oh, definitely. I agree. There's some remedial um, information available to them. And in the end, it should make them more comfortable in front of the classroom. I mean, I'd hate to do something that I was in misery over every day. So we hope that they are supported by what we're doing.
But again, taking a look at real estate education, I think, was a beginning step to any of the work that we did on the other two task forces addressing education, because irrespective of how we restructured education or those programs, it's still going to be delivered by the instructor.
Yes.
And so we really, we caught up and made certain that the instructor portion was done and done in a very, I think, very professional manner. And now we're really working on the content for those programs. The salesperson's program, I think, was good, but I think the broker's program will be a little more intense. We have another question. Tam, good
Hi,
morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you this morning?
Excellent.
All right, great. This is my first meeting with y'all. I'm actually a reciprocal broker from Texas, and I'm also
Oh,
an instructor. Is there any such programs to be a reciprocal instructor in Alabama?
yeah. Are you talking about coming to the state to teach or teaching Alabama pre-licensed courses in Texas?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you froze up. All I heard was the last couple words of your.
Oh dear, I hate when I do that. Are you talking about having pre-licensed courses for Alabama located in Texas, or are you talking about bringing your courses to Alabama?
I'm actually talking about continuing education classes taught in Alabama.
Okay, yes, we do have non-resident instructors that have expertise in various things and have established that expertise. So we do have national speakers who will come in and do continuing education from time to time. I encourage you to have a conversation with our education staff and pursue that further to see how you can get approved.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And welcome aboard. Sam, you have a question.
Yes, good morning. Thank you both for doing this. It's my first time on the Coffee with the Commission. I am a reciprocal broker out of Florida. And my question is based on the demographics of companies in Alabama, 4,381, is there a way to have a breakdown of how many African American brokerages there are in Alabama? Because we've traveled the state and I rarely come in contact with any African American broker owners.
Tim, so there is not, the commission does not, our business and our application and the way that we regulate is abstract of demographics. So we wouldn't be able to tell you that information. And we also don't really even get into affiliations. We have affiliate members that have licensees and some that don't, but in either case, we do not collect demographics here.
I would encourage you to look into some professional organizations,
Yeah.
though, that may have the populations that you're looking for. There are a variety of them. Um, and so you should research that. And I'm sure that they have chapters in Florida.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Those were good ones. And welcome. It seems like the new year has brought us some new faces.
Well, and it's good that we're hearing from our educators. We didn't talk specifics earlier, but right now we've seen growth in the number of education licenses as well.
Yes.
So we're normally in the 700s for Alabama. Right now we're at 823 total education licenses. So that's a lot. I mean, that's over 100 more than we've seen in the past year or 18 months. And I don't know if that can be totally attributed to the fact that we're making changes and folks want to get ahead of the changes, or if we're just growing at that rate and pace. I mean, if you look at our general licensee population, it's growing, we're tracking that, but now we see growth in education licenses as well. And these are folks that are serious about their business. They're not only investing in their license, but they're teaching as well. And so I think that's a great opportunity for the state. We'll need that sort of workforce when we make the changes to the salespersons and brokers program. And so, with the changes and the indoctrinations that we've made for instructors, I think it can only aid what we hope to see in the years to come. And I think it's important too, Teresa, to remind our licensees that when we talk about task forces or uh, changes to license law and that sort of thing, those are years changes. It's not something that we can do here at the commission. The legislature has to do that, and it doesn't happen overnight. And so it's imperative for licensees to track what we're doing and make certain that they're abreast of our schedules so that they don't anticipate a change tomorrow that may not arrive for another year or two.
Right.
And so, but I think the preparation won't hurt at all. But these changes are not happening overnight.
No, there are some things that are not in our control. Legislative changes, statutory changes go through the legislature, and that's not in our control, unfortunately. But um, I do think it's exciting to have the plans made and to see where we're going. And I'm not surprised that more educators want to be affiliated with that. It is an exciting time. Another thing that change that we have made, and we have been able to implement it in the education area, is our licensing exam. Starting January 1, we changed exam providers. We went through an RFP process, and we are now with Pearson VUE. And I checked with Ryan just before, Ryan Adair, the director of our education division, and he said that nothing is without a glitch or two, but those have been internal, and we're able to remedy those. Um, Licensees and applicants have felt no ripple. The exams are going off without a hitch. We have some people successful, we have some that are challenged with them, but it seems to be a good move and running smoothly.
So I know that most of the licensing community has become familiar or had become familiar with David Bowen
Yes.
over the years, and very often they could call the education department and get Pam, Julie, Ryan, or David, and have the answer that you need right there. Well, David has retired, and he is happily walking around the Auburn area at this point.
He is. He's sending messages. We're all a little jealous.
But David has given decades of service to the Real Estate Commission and decided to spend more time with his family and I think his mother. But we were able to expeditiously, I think, find another person to step up and really come into the education division and hopefully be a key player soon. And that's Dr. Brittany Jones Anderson. And
Yes.
so we talk a lot about David Bowen, and I want to make sure that licensees knew or know that David Bowen was also Dr. David Bowen. He was a very highly credentialed person in our education department, and now we have another one, and it just complements the experience and knowledge and skill I think that's already there. I mean, Ryan and his team are always working on something new and different in education, and education has its own I think, unique responsibilities for licensees because instructors are running into issues every day. They need assistance. We audit our schools as well. And so once we go out and have an audit or do an audit type visit, um, that too has more requirements. So we're very excited to have Dr. Anderson on board. We will miss David.
Yeah, but let me add, if David worked with the schools and the course content to recognize and approve those, um, that work is now being done by Pam Oates, that I'm sure you're all familiar with. Pam has been working with our instructors in our classrooms for a long time. She now has shifted to the content, and so what David used to do, Pam is doing. Of course, she's very well versed in that. She's been here a while, and Brittany will be also going to do some of the classroom audits. So y'all may have a chance to meet her soon.
Good. And we have a question. Paul, good morning. How are you?
Hey, this is Paul Garris with Redemption Realty. Um,
Hey.
I saw in one of the recent surveys that the commission sent out some mention of issues with wholesalers, and I was wondering if the commission is aware of this. I'm sure they are, and if they're working on anything to try to address this issue with wholesalers basically acting as brokers without being licensed.
Paul, I'll have to unfortunately defer. That was not the commission. That
Okay,
was probably your trade association. We would not have sent out a survey regarding wholesalers or anyone else.
okay. Is
But
this
we
something
are.
the commission's aware of?
Absolutely,
Okay.
100%. Unfortunately, we get the calls and they want uh, resolve right away, but that survey was actually sent out by the trade associate by one of our trade associations, and I think some discussions are being had in that area.
Yeah, that is a big issue all across the country. There are people trying to address it from various angles. It is far more complicated than it seems on the surface. We understand your concern and appreciate it, but a remedy for that will have to be very artfully crafted and probably involve legislation.
Yeah, there
Okay.
are several issues, Paul, and I'll try to be as soft as possible here. There's several issues that we have and have had on our radar for quite some time. However, the manner in which they have to be addressed is through the legislature. Uh, the wholesaling is one issue. There's another issue of listing agreements being a bit lengthy. Um,
Mhm.
we are aware of them, and I think they're being discussed where they should be, and will be addressed in due time and fashion.
Okay, thank you for your response.
Yes, sir. David.
Hey, David Watts out of Birmingham.
Yes, sir. Good morning. How are you?
Morning. How are you?
Excellent.
Good. I had a couple questions. There's a lot of small items or details within the law that different property managers within the business seem to forget or bypass when dealing with other property managers. And I know they're small in nature, but when people are trying to do business and follow them by the book, it just seems like either there's aspects of the law that I guess we need to address and change as a group, or we need to enforce the small things on people too. Um, just little things like 7 business days of having to provide security deposits to other businesses, things like that when you're transferring management. I would say that's one of the small things that most businesses, when they transfer management or close a property, they just don't abide by. Nobody, I would say, is the biggest offenders of transfer management within the industry. But again, a lot of small rules that a lot of current brokers and current businesses just don't pay attention to anymore. Any thoughts on those?
What are some others?
When a client has to ask for information that's to their own business from their manager, some of their management companies will not give it to them. For example, social security numbers of the tenants. Well, that's the client. They need that to operate their business because it's their tenant. And some of the managers won't give the social security number. Well, they need that if something goes wrong for an unlawful detainer. Things like that. Within the code, the law says you have to give the client, I had to find it here, but under specific demand 34-273630, they'd have to, give information that the client requests. But I have a laundry list of them, but little codes that different managers are just kind of getting lax about nowadays, not paying attention to.
Well, I'm glad you bring that to our attention. We like having things brought to our attention when there seems to be a deficit. What we can do is we can make that a focus of communication from the commission. We can put out messaging. We can encourage class developers, continuing ed developers to develop courses in those areas. We can promote taking those courses in those subject matter. Part of our plan for pre-licensed salesperson education is to take some of those specialized areas like property management and to focus on those so that part of the pre-license education will be a review of the unique requirements that property management has over residential management. So we realize that there are some unique aspects of the law for those people in those specialized areas, and we do plan on emphasizing that up front in the future. But right now, I would say that knowing that's a problem, I would encourage you to contact Starla Leverett, our attorney, and to let her know that you're seeing deficiencies in this area so that she can keep that on her in her view, and maybe when she goes out and speaks to groups, she can start incorporating that information and doing a little more to promote those laws.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. It's just it's the things where it's either a law change or education change or one of those things.
Understood. Absolutely so. Well, I think I can safely say at this point we'll have follow-on conversations about this.
Oh yeah, that's what this is about. This two-way interaction. Thank you.
Absolutely so. Other questions or concerns out there? No questions? Well, I guess we did well in answering the questions that were presented. Well, we have a lot that's happening this year. Specifically, we're going to focus on education renewal.
Yeah.
So we got through normal renewal last year. It's an odd year now, and so we're looking to education renewal. We'll start messaging that a lot as we're doing here, and hopefully those 823 folks are geared up and ready for it.
Ready to go.
But there's always something to do here. But I think the more that we hear from licensees, the better performance and service and duties we can provide to them on the other end. So this is always a great venue. So thanks again for joining me this morning.
That was fun.
If there are no further questions out there, we'll go ahead and start wrapping up, folks. But we are always here. We're always open ears and open eyes. We want to hear from you, and I do mean that. Of the questions that we received even this morning, we'll follow up and get back in contact with some of you. But we can also be reached on our website at arec.alabama.gov. We can be reached via email at arec@arec.alabama.gov. We can be reached via phone at area code 334-242-5544. Our social media handle is at AREC Alabama Gov, one word. We're on with that handle. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And as a closing note, if you receive an email from the Real Estate Commission, please read it. Please. Thank you all so very much for your time. We will see you all next month. But as a reminder, if you're not busy tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., we also live broadcast our commission hearings. So if you have a few moments to spare, log on tomorrow morning. We'll be glad to have you. Thank you for your time. and have a wonderful week and a productive month.
Bye.